over the bustling streets of Ikeja, Lagos, casting its golden rays on the sea of humanity moving with purpose through the vibrant city. Street vendors line the sidewalks, their shouts mingling with the blaring horns of impatient drivers and the rhythmic clatter of danfos, the ubiquitous yellow buses of Lagos. Among the chaos, a modest cosmetics shop stood tucked between a roadside kiosk selling roasted plantains and a boutique that displayed ostentatious lace fabrics in its glass windows. Inside the shop, the air was cool, a sharp contrast to the heat outside. The faint scent of shea butter, hair oils, and perfumes hung in the air, mingling with the hushed conversations of a few customers browsing the aisles. Adeobi, a striking young woman in her mid-20s, stood behind the counter with a polite smile, her hands expertly organizing products on the shelves. Her simple appearance belied her extraordinary background. Adeobi wore a plain blue Ankara dress, her braided hair pulled back into a neat bun. She blended seamlessly into the surroundings, a deliberate effort on her part to escape the trappings of her billionaire lifestyle. She loved the amenity that working at the shop afforded her, a world away from the sprawling mansion she called home on Banana Island. As she restocked jars of organic cocoa butter, the glass door swung open, the small bell above it jingling softly. A young man stepped inside, his presence immediately drawing Adeobi's attention. He was tall and lean, with a quiet confidence in his stride. His brown skin glistened slightly from the heat outside, and his neatly trimmed beard framed a face that carried an air of earnestness. "Good afternoon," he greeted warmly, his deep voice carrying over the soft music playing in the shop. "Good afternoon," Adeobi replied, her smile widening instinctively. The young man, Chijioke, looked around the shop, his eyes scanning the neatly arranged shelves. He was on a mission, a promise made to his younger sister, Amaka, to buy her a specific type of hair conditioner that she couldn't find in their local market. As the eldest of 3 siblings, Chijioke had always shouldered responsibilities with quiet determination. "Excuse me," he said, approaching the counter where Adeobi stood. "Do you have aloe vera moisture conditioner?" Adeobi tilted her head slightly, her brows furrowing in concentration. "Let me check," she said, moving gracefully to one of the shelves. Chijioke watched as she searched, her movements efficient and confident. As she handed him the bottle he was looking for, their fingers brushed briefly. It was a fleeting touch, but it sent an inexplicable jolt through Chijioke. He cleared his throat, trying to push the odd sensation aside. "Thank you," he said, placing the bottle in the small basket he carried. "You're welcome," Adeobi replied, her tone as pleasant as ever. There was something about her demeanor, calm, composed, and genuine, that intrigued Chijioke. In a city where people were often preoccupied with appearances and status, this woman seemed refreshingly different. He found himself lingering longer than necessary, pretending to browse while stealing glances at her. Adeobi noticed but said nothing. She had encountered many customers in her time at the shop, but this young man stood out. There was an unpretentious charm about him that she found appealing. Still, she reminded herself to remain professional. "Do you need help with anything else?" she asked after a while, breaking the silence. Chijioke hesitated, then decided to be bold. "Actually, yes. Could you recommend a good moisturizer? My sister has been complaining about her skin being too dry." Adeobi chuckled softly, a melodic sound that made Chijioke's heart skip a beat. "You're quite the caring brother," she said, walking over to another shelf. "She complains a lot," he said with a sheepish grin, following her. "It's easier to just fix the problem than listen to her nag." Adeobi handed him a jar of shea butter. "This is one of our best sellers. It's natural and very effective." Chijioke nodded, examining the jar. "I'll take it." As he returned to the counter to pay, Adeobi asked casually, "Do you live around here?" "Yes, not too far," he replied. I'm staying in a flat near the computer village. What about you? Do you own this shop? Adeobi laughed lightly, shaking her head. No, I just work here. Her response was technically true, though it left out the fact that she owned the entire building the shop occupied. She had no intention of revealing that detail. Chijioke was about to say something else when the door opened again, and another customer walked in. Realizing he was monopolizing her time, he stepped aside. Thank you, he said, picking up his items. You're welcome, Adeobi replied, her smile lingering as she watched him leave. Outside, Chijioke stood for a moment, staring at the shop's signboard. He felt an unusual sense of contentment, as though meeting Adeobi had brightened his day in a way he couldn't quite explain. Underscore 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 underscore. Chijioke returned to his small apartment, the scent of jollof rice wafting from the kitchen. His best friend and roommate, Obina, was seated on the worn-out couch, watching a football match on their old TV. You're back, Obina said, barely glancing up. Did you get the stuff for Amaka? Yeah, Chijioke replied, placing the bag on the small dining table. Obina looked at him more closely. Why are you smiling like that? Like what? Like someone who just got a promotion, Obina teased. Chijioke shrugged, trying to act nonchalant. Nothing. I just met someone interesting. Interesting how? Obina asked, now fully attentive. Chijioke hesitated, then said, there's this girl at the shop where I went. She's different. Beautiful, but simple and kind. Obina raised an eyebrow. And what did you do? Ask for her number? No, Chijioke admitted. I didn't want to come off as one of those guys who hit on every shop attendant they meet. Obina shook his head in mock disappointment. My guy, if you don't shoot your shot, someone else will. I'll see her again, Chijioke said confidently, surprising even himself with how certain he felt. Underscore 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 underscore. Adeobi returned to her mansion later that evening, her modest demeanor at the shop replaced by the poise of a young woman accustomed to wealth. The sprawling estate was a testament to her family's affluence, but Adeobi often felt like a stranger in her own home. Her mother, Uzoamako, was waiting for her in the grand sitting room. How was work today? Her mother asked, her tone laced with disapproval. It was fine, Adeobi replied simply, knowing it was futile to explain her reasons for working at the shop. You should focus on running the company, Uzoamako said. Your father didn't build Okeke Enterprises so you could waste your time stacking shelves. Adeobi sighed. I'm not wasting my time, Mama. I'm learning. Her mother shook her head but said nothing more. As Adeobi retreated to her room, she couldn't help but think of Chijioke. There had been something genuine about him, something that made her believe not everyone saw her as just a billionaire's daughter. The following week in Ikeja brought with it the usual hustle and bustle of Lagos. The streets were alive with the sounds of commerce and conversation, the vibrant energy of the city never ceasing to amaze its inhabitants. Chijioke found himself back at the cosmetics shop more frequently, each visit a subtle attempt to see Adeobi again. The following week in Ikeja brought with it the usual hustle and bustle of Lagos. The streets were alive with the sounds of commerce and conversation, the vibrant energy of the city never ceasing to amaze its inhabitants. Chijiok found himself back at the cosmetics shop more frequently, each visit a subtle attempt to see Adeobi again. His initial encounter had left an impression that lingered, sparking a curiosity he couldn't easily quell. On a particularly sweltering Wednesday afternoon, Chijiok pushed open the glass door of the cosmetics shop, greeted by the familiar aroma of fragrant oils and the cool interior air. Adeobi was arranging a new shipment of skincare products, her movements precise and efficient. She glanced up, her eyes meeting his with a warm smile that seemed to brighten the room. "Good afternoon, Chijiok," she greeted, her voice carrying a hint of familiarity that made his heart flutter. "Good afternoon, Adeobi," he replied, feeling a surge of confidence he hadn't felt before. They had exchanged a few more pleasantries since their first meeting, but today felt different. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a connection that went beyond casual interactions. As Chijiok approached the counter with a list of items he needed for his sister, Amaka, he noticed the subtle changes in Adeobi. Perhaps it was the way her hair shimmered under the shop's lighting or the gentle grace with which she moved, but he found himself paying closer attention to her. "Looking for anything specific today?" Adeobi asked, her eyes twinkling with genuine interest. "Yes," Chijiok began, glancing at his list. "I need a good moisturizer, a shampoo that can help with dry scalp, and maybe some sunscreen. Amaka has been complaining about her skin lately." Adeobi nodded thoughtfully, leading him to the relevant sections. "I recommend our aloe vera moisturizer, it's very soothing. For dry scalp, this herbal shampoo works wonders, and our sunscreen has a high SPF without being greasy." As she spoke, Chijiok couldn't help but admire her knowledge and the ease with which she handled her tasks. It was clear she was passionate about her work, and that passion was infectious. While selecting the products, Chijiok decided to share a bit about himself. "I'm trying to save up for my own tech startup. It's been challenging juggling my job and trying to get everything off the ground." Adeobi listened attentively, her interest genuine. "That sounds ambitious. What kind of tech startup are you planning?" Chijiok felt a sense of relief at her interest. "I'm developing an app aimed at improving access to education for underprivileged children. It's something close to my heart." Adeobi's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "That's incredible. Education is so vital, and making it accessible can truly change lives." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, covering topics from personal aspirations to the challenges of living in Lagos. For Chijiok, it was refreshing to talk to someone who not only listened but also shared his values and dreams. As the afternoon sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the shop floor, Chijiok realized how much time had passed. He glanced at his watch, a sense of regret washing over him. "I should get going. I've got a meeting with Obina about the startup." Adeobi handed him a few more samples, her fingers brushing his once more. "Good luck with your meeting. I'm sure it will go well." "Thanks," he replied, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "Maybe I'll see you around again." "I'd like that," she said softly, the sincerity in her voice making Chijiok's heart race. That evening, as Chijiok and Obina sat in their modest living room, the conversation naturally drifted to his day at the cosmetics shop. "Sounds like you had a good day," Obina remarked, leaning back in his chair. Chijiok nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "Yeah, met Adeobi again. She's really something." Obina raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh? What's so special about her?" Chijiok shrugged, a hint of shyness in his demeanor. "She's just different. Kind, knowledgeable, and genuinely interested in what I'm doing. It's rare to meet someone like that." Obina chuckled, clapping his friend on the shoulder. "Maybe you should take it up a notch. Ask her out properly." Chijiok hesitated, the idea both exciting and daunting. I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly rolling in cash. What if she thinks I'm beneath her? Billionaire shook his head. Money isn't everything, man. If she's as genuine as you say, she'll see that. Chijioke mulled over his friend's words, the seed of an idea beginning to take root. Perhaps it was time to step out of his comfort zone and see where this connection could lead. The next day, Chijioke decided to act on his feelings. After his shift, he returned to the cosmetics shop with a small bouquet of fresh flowers from a nearby market. The vibrant colors and fragrant scent were meant to convey his appreciation without overwhelming her. As he entered the shop, Adeobi looked up, surprise flickering across her features before being replaced by a warm smile. Chijioke. What a pleasant surprise. I thought you might like these, he said, extending the bouquet towards her. They're for you. Adeobi accepted the flowers with a grateful smile, her eyes meeting his in a moment that seemed to suspend time. Thank you, they're beautiful. Encouraged by her positive reaction, Chijioke took a deep breath. I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee sometime. Maybe we can talk more about your work here and my startup. Adeobi considered his request for a moment, her expression thoughtful. I'd like that. How about tomorrow afternoon? Chijioke felt a surge of relief and excitement. Tomorrow works for me. There's a nice little cafe near Computer Village. I can meet you there. Perfect, Adeobi agreed, her smile widening. See you then, Chijioke. As he left the shop, Chijioke felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Taking the first step had been nerve-wracking, but her acceptance gave him the confidence to pursue what he felt was the beginning of something meaningful. The following day, Chijioke arrived at the cafe a few minutes early, choosing a cozy spot by the window. He fidgeted nervously, rehearsing what he wanted to say, hoping to make a good impression. Minutes later, the bell above the door jingled, and Adeobi walked in. She looked effortlessly elegant in a simple yet stylish outfit, her presence commanding attention without the need for extravagance. Her hair was neatly styled, and she carried herself with a grace that made her stand out in any crowd. Hi, Adeobi, Chijioke greeted, standing to offer her a seat. Hi, Chijioke. Thanks for inviting me, she replied, her smile as warm as ever. They ordered their drinks and settled into a comfortable conversation. Chijioke found himself opening up about his startup, sharing his vision and the challenges he faced. Adeobi listened intently, offering thoughtful feedback and encouragement. You have a great idea, she said earnestly. Have you considered partnering with local schools or NGOs to implement your app? It could help you reach a wider audience and gain more support. Chijioke nodded, appreciating her insights. That's a good point. I've been focusing too much on the technical side and not enough on outreach. Adeobi's thoughtful nature shone through as she continued to offer suggestions and share her own experiences, even though her role at the cosmetics shop didn't directly relate to his field. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, each topic leading to another without awkward pauses or forced transitions. As they talked, Chijioke realized how much he admired Adeobi's intelligence and humility. Despite her evident knowledge and passion, she remained grounded and approachable. It was rare to find someone who combined such depth with simplicity, and it only deepened his interest in her. I admire your dedication, Adeobi remarked. It's not easy to balance work and personal projects, especially when you're trying to make a difference. Chijioke felt a flush of pride mixed with gratitude. It's definitely challenging, but it's worth it. Seeing the impact it can have on children's lives keeps me going. Adeobi nodded, her eyes reflecting a shared sense of purpose. That's inspiring. It's important to follow something that truly matters to you. As the afternoon sun began to wane, casting a golden hue over the cafe, their conversation took on a more personal tone. Chijiok found himself sharing stories about his family, his siblings, and the responsibilities he felt as the eldest. Adeobi, in turn, spoke about her upbringing, her love for poetry, and the solace she found in writing. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a mutual respect for each other's journeys and aspirations. It was clear that beneath their different backgrounds, they shared common values and dreams. Towards the end of their meeting, Adeobi hesitated before speaking. Chijiok, I have to tell you something. I admire your work and your passion. It's rare to meet someone so dedicated. Chijiok looked at her, sensing the gravity in her tone. Thank you, Adeobi. That means a lot coming from you. Adeobi took a deep breath, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of vulnerability and strength. I appreciate your support. It's not often that I find someone who genuinely understands and encourages my endeavors. Chijiok felt a surge of emotion, realizing that their connection went beyond mere attraction. It was a meeting of minds and hearts, something he had been yearning for without even knowing it. As they left the cafe, the night air was cool and refreshing, a stark contrast to the day's heat. Chijiok walked Adeobi to her door, the conversation lingering in his mind long after she had left. Thank you for today, he said softly. I really enjoyed our conversation. Adeobi smiled, a hint of something deeper in her eyes. Me too, Chijiok. I'm looking forward to seeing how your startup progresses. With a final wave, she turned and walked inside, leaving Chijiok standing under the soft glow of the streetlights. He felt a sense of optimism, a belief that this was the start of something meaningful. Back in his apartment, Chijiok couldn't shake the feeling of contentment that had settled over him. As he sat down with Obina, he began to share the details of his coffee date. It was amazing, Chijiok said, a smile tugging at his lips. She's not just beautiful, she's intelligent and genuinely interested in what I'm doing. Obina listened, nodding in approval. See? I told you she was different. Maybe this is exactly what you needed. Chijiok felt a renewed sense of purpose, not just for his startup but for his personal life as well. Meeting Adeobi had reignited his passion, reminding him why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. Meanwhile, Adeobi returned to her home, her mind still occupied with the day's interactions. She sat down at her desk, pulling out her notebook to jot down thoughts inspired by her conversation with Chijiok. Despite the simplicity she maintained, her intellect and creativity shone through in her writing, capturing the essence of her experiences and emotions. As she penned down her reflections, she couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Meeting someone like Chijiok, someone who saw beyond her surface and valued her for who she was a rare and precious gift. As days turned into weeks, Chijiok and Adeobi continued to see each other, their relationship deepening with each meeting. They supported each other's endeavors, finding strength and inspiration in their shared goals and mutual respect. Chijiok's startup began to gain traction, thanks in part to Adeobi's insightful suggestions and unwavering support. Adeobi, too, found solace and motivation in their growing bond, her poetry reflecting the newfound joy and purpose she had discovered. Their connection was a testament to the power of love and understanding, proving that true relationships are built on a foundation of mutual respect, shared values, and genuine affection. Adeobi leaned against the glass counter of the cosmetics shop, watching the street through the large window. The sun was high in the sky, and the relentless Lagos heat bore down on the city, but inside the shop, it was cool and quiet. A few customers browsed the aisles, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Over the past few weeks, her encounters with Chijiok had become a bright spot in her life. His sincerity and determination were a refreshing contrast to the shallow world she often found herself in. Yet, a nagging voice in the back of her mind reminded her of the secret she was keeping, a secret she wasn't sure how to share. She sighed, her fingers idly tracing the edge of the counter. Her phone vibrated, breaking her reverie. It was a text from Chijiok. Chijiok, lunch today? My treat. Adeobi smiled. His messages were always simple but heartfelt. Adeobi, sure. Where? His reply was immediate. Chijiok, there's a new jollof spot near the mall. Meet me at 1 p.m. Adeobi, see you then. She glanced at the time, 12:30 p.m. Quickly excusing herself from the shop, she stepped into the staff room to freshen up. She opted for a simple yet elegant outfit, a white blouse tucked into a patterned ochre skirt, paired with comfortable flats. Adeobi preferred to keep her look understated, a habit that helped her maintain her anonymity. Underscore 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 underscore. The restaurant was cozy, with the tantalizing aroma of spices wafting through the air. Chijiok was already seated at a table by the window when Adeobi arrived. He stood up to greet her, his smile warm and inviting. You're early, she teased as she sat down. I didn't want to keep you waiting, he replied, his tone light. They placed their orders, and soon, steaming plates of jollof rice, grilled chicken, and fried plantains arrived. The food was delicious, but it was the conversation that truly nourished their spirits. How's the startup coming along? Adeobi asked, her eyes shining with genuine interest. Chijiok leaned back in his chair, his expression a mix of excitement and exhaustion. It's been a roller coaster. Obina and I finally got a small grant from a local NGO, but there's still so much to do. We're trying to hire a programmer to help us build the app. Adeobi nodded thoughtfully. Have you considered reaching out to investors? There are people looking to support projects like yours. We're trying, Chijiok said, his tone tinged with frustration. But it's tough when you don't have connections. Adeobi hesitated. She could easily connect him with investors through her father's extensive network, but doing so would mean revealing her true identity. I'm sure you'll figure it out, she said instead, offering an encouraging smile. You're resourceful, and you have a great idea. People will see that. Their conversation drifted to lighter topics, and for a while, they were just two young people enjoying each other's company. As they were finishing their meal, a tall, elegantly dressed man entered the restaurant. Adeobi froze. It was her cousin, Emeka, a sharp-witted lawyer who often handled her family's business affairs. Emeka's eyes scanned the room before landing on their table. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, and he made his way over. Adeobi, he said, his tone polite but curious. What a surprise. Emeka, Adeobi replied, her voice steadied despite the nervous flutter in her chest. Emeka glanced at Chijiok, his expression unreadable. And who is this? Chijiok stood up, extending a hand. I'm Chijiok. A friend of Adeobi's. Emeka shook his hand briefly, his gaze returning to Adeobi. Well, I won't interrupt. Let's talk later, cousin. With that, he walked away, leaving Adeobi and Chijiok in an awkward silence. Cousin? Chijiok asked, his curiosity piqued. Adeobi forced a smile. Yes. He's in town for some family business. Chijiok didn't press further, but the encounter left him wondering about the parts of Adeobi's life she hadn't shared. Later that evening, Adeobi met with Emeka at her family's estate. The large, modern mansion was a stark contrast to the modest life she presented to the world. What was that about? Emeka asked, his tone more curious than accusatory. Adeobi sighed, sinking into a plush armchair. It's nothing, Emeka. Just a friend. Does he know who you are? No, she admitted. And I'd like to keep it that way, at least for now. Emeka frowned. You can't hide forever, Adeobi. Sooner or later, he'll find out. And when he does, how do you think he'll react? I'll handle it when the time comes, she said firmly. Emeka shook his head but didn't push the issue. Just be careful. Not everyone has good intentions. Meanwhile, Chijioke returned to his apartment with a sense of unease. Obinna, ever perceptive, noticed his mood. Rough day, he asked. Chijioke shook his head. Not really. I had lunch with Adeobi, and it was great. But then her cousin showed up, and it felt off. Off how? I don't know, Chijioke admitted. It's like there's more to her than she's letting on. I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like she's hiding something. Obinna shrugged. Maybe she has her reasons. If you like her, give her the benefit of the doubt. Chijioke nodded, but the encounter lingered in his mind. He liked Adeobi a lot, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she was keeping a part of herself hidden. Despite the lingering doubts, Chijioke and Adeobi continued to grow closer. Their conversations became deeper, their connection more profound. Chijioke admired Adeobi's intelligence and kindness, while Adeobi was drawn to Chijioke's passion and determination. One evening, as they sat on a park bench overlooking the Lagos Lagoon, Chijioke turned to Adeobi. I feel like I can talk to you about anything, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. You can, Adeobi replied, her gaze steady. I'm here for you, Chijioke. He smiled, reaching for her hand. Thank you. That means a lot. Adeobi felt a pang of guilt. She wanted to be honest with him, to share the truth about her life. But each time she tried, the words got stuck in her throat. That night, Adeobi sat in her bedroom, staring at the ornate ceiling. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. She cared deeply for Chijioke, but her secret loomed over their relationship like a storm cloud. Could he accept her for who she truly was? Or would her wealth and status drive a wedge between them? As she drifted off to sleep, she resolved to tell him the truth, soon. Chijioke, the joy of Adeobi's presence often masked his growing curiosity about her. Yet, he chose to focus on the moments they shared, finding solace in her laughter and wisdom. On a breezy Saturday morning, Chijioke's phone buzzed with a message from Adeobi. Adeobi, hi Chijioke, are you free this afternoon? Chijioke's heart skipped a beat. He quickly typed a response. Chijioke, I'm free. What's up? Adeobi, I thought we could spend the day together. I know a quiet spot by the beach. Care for an adventure? Chijioke smiled. He appreciated how Adeobi always found ways to make their time together meaningful. Chijioke, count me in. Just tell me where and when. By noon, they were on their way to Takwa Bay, a serene beach accessible only by boat. The journey itself was a refreshing change from the chaos of Lagos streets. The boat skimmed over the water, the cool breeze carrying away the city's noise. Adeobi seemed particularly vibrant, her excitement infectious. I love coming here, she said as they disembarked. It's peaceful and reminds me to slow down. Chijioke looked around, taking in the tranquil waves and the golden sand. It's beautiful. I can see why you like it. They found a shaded spot and settled on a mat Adeobi had brought. She unpacked a small picnic, revealing sandwiches, fresh fruit, and chilled drinks. You came prepared, Chijioke said with a chuckle. Adeobi shrugged playfully. I like to plan ahead. Besides, I wanted today to be special. As they ate, their conversation turned to their aspirations. What made you so passionate about your startup? Adeobi asked, genuinely curious. Chijioke leaned back, his gaze fixed on the horizon. It's partly personal. My younger sister, Amaka, struggled in school because we couldn't afford the resources she needed. It made me realize how many kids are denied opportunities just because they lack access. Adeobi listened intently, her admiration for him growing. That's incredible, Chijioke. You're turning a difficult experience into something meaningful. What about you? He asked, turning the focus on her. What drives you? Adeobi hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns in the sand. I guess I've always wanted to make a difference too. But sometimes, it feels like people only see the surface and not who I really am. Chijioke frowned slightly. What do you mean? She looked at him, her expression a mix of vulnerability and determination. I mean, sometimes people judge you based on what they think they know, not on who you truly are. It can be hard to find genuine connections. Chijioke nodded, understanding the sentiment. I get that. But you don't have to worry about that with me. I see you, Adeobi, and I like who you are. Her heart swelled at his words, but the shadow of her secret loomed. She knew she couldn't delay much longer. As the day wore on, they walked along the shore, their laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. Chijioke couldn't remember the last time he felt so at ease. But as they approached a secluded area, a black SUV parked nearby caught Adeobi's attention. Her relaxed demeanor shifted slightly, her steps faltering. Everything okay? Chijioke asked, noticing her sudden unease. Yeah, she said quickly, forcing a smile. Let's head back. Unbeknownst to Chijioke, the SUV belonged to one of her family's security personnel, discreetly assigned to ensure her safety. The sight of it reminded her of the life she had tried to leave behind, if only temporarily. That evening, Adeobi dropped Chijioke off at his apartment. Before he got out of the car, she reached for his hand. Thank you for today, she said softly. I had a wonderful time. Me too, he replied, his fingers lingering on hers. Let's do it again soon. As he walked into his building, Adeobi sat in the car for a moment, her mind racing. She cared for Chijioke deeply, but the walls of her double life were beginning to close in. The next day, Chijioke was at his desk, working on a proposal for his startup, when his phone rang. It was Adeobi. Hi, Adeobi, he greeted, his tone cheerful. Hi, Chijioke, she replied, her voice steady but tinged with something he couldn't quite place. Are you free this evening? I'd like to talk. Of course, he said. Where should we meet? There's a rooftop cafe in Lekki. I'll text you the address. That evening, Chijioke arrived at the cafe, its elegant ambience a far cry from their usual hangouts. Adeobi was already seated, looking stunning in a simple black dress. You look amazing, he said as he joined her. Thank you, she replied, her smile warm but reserved. After ordering drinks, Adeobi took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly on the table. Chijioke, there's something I need to tell you, she began, her voice firm. I haven't been completely honest with you. He frowned slightly, concern etched on his face. What do you mean? I'm not just a shopkeeper, she said, her words measured. The cosmetic store is something I do to stay grounded. But my family is, well, we're wealthy. Very wealthy. Chijioke stared at her, his mind struggling to process her words. Wealthy how? Adeobi hesitated before replying. My father owns one of the largest investment firms in the country. The estate, the cars, the security, it's all part of my life, a life I've tried to keep separate. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The bustling sounds of the cafe seemed to fade into the background. "Why didn't you tell me?" Chijioke finally asked, his voice calm but laced with hurt. "Because I wanted you to see me for who I am," Adeobi said, her eyes pleading. "Not for my family's money or what it could offer. I've dealt with people who only care about my status, and I didn't want that with you." Chijioke took a deep breath, his emotions a whirlwind. "Adeobi, I don't care about your family's wealth. I like you for you. But I wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me sooner." "I know," she said softly. "And I'm sorry. I should have been honest from the start." Chijioke nodded slowly, his expression softening. "Thank you for telling me now. It doesn't change how I feel about you. But I need some time to process this." Adeobi nodded, relief and apprehension mingling in her gaze. "Take all the time you need. I didn't want to keep hiding." That night, Chijioke lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Adeobi's confession replayed in his mind, stirring a mix of emotions. He admired her courage for opening up but couldn't ignore the lingering doubts. Could their relationship survive the stark differences in their worlds? As he drifted off to sleep, one thought remained clear: he cared for Adeobi deeply, and despite the challenges, he wasn't ready to let her go. The days following Adeobi's confession were a whirlwind for Chijioke. He replayed their conversations over and over, trying to reconcile the Adeobi he knew with the new context of her life. She had always been simple, kind, and down to earth, a stark contrast to the image he now had of a billionaire heiress. At work, during meetings with potential partners for his startup, and even in the quiet of his apartment, the same question lingered in his mind: could their relationship survive such a stark disparity in their backgrounds? Adeobi, on the other hand, had been restless. She hadn't heard much from Chijioke since their conversation, and the silence gnawed at her. She decided to take matters into her own hands. One sunny afternoon, she texted him. "Adeobi, are you free today? I'd like you to visit my home." Chijioke stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. Visiting her home felt like crossing a line he wasn't sure he was ready for. But curiosity and his feelings for her ultimately won out. "Chijioke, okay. When?" Adeobi responded almost instantly. "Adeobi, I'll send a car for you at 3 p.m. True to her word, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up in front of Chijioke's modest apartment complex that afternoon. The driver, a polite man in his 40s, opened the door for him. "Miss Adeobi asked me to bring you to the estate," he said with a small bow. Chijioke settled into the plush leather seat, his mind racing as the car glided through the bustling streets of Lagos. When they arrived, Chijioke's breath caught in his throat. The estate was massive, surrounded by high walls and guarded gates. Inside, manicured lawns stretched out before an opulent mansion with gleaming marble steps and grand pillars. Adeobi was waiting for him at the entrance, dressed casually in a flowing sundress. She greeted him with a nervous smile. "Welcome," she said, her voice soft. Chijioke nodded, his awe evident. "This is incredible." "It's home," she said with a shrug, though her tone betrayed her discomfort. "Come on, I'll show you around." She led him through the mansion, pointing out the art-lined hallways, the vast library filled with leather-bound books, and the expansive patio overlooking a crystal-clear pool. Chijioke couldn't hide his amazement, but he also noticed Adeobi's unease. "This place is beautiful, but you don't seem at home here," he observed as they settled on the patio with glasses of fresh juice. Adeobi sighed, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I've always felt like I didn't quite belong. My family's wealth comes with expectations, how I should act, who I should associate with. The cosmetics shop is my way of stepping outside that bubble." Chijioke nodded, beginning to understand. "It must be hard, living under that kind of pressure. It is, she admitted. That's why meeting you was such a breath of fresh air. You've reminded me of the person I want to be, not the person people expect me to be. Her words touched Chijioke deeply. He reached out, covering her hand with his. I'm glad I can be that for you. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Adeobi's father, Chief Ease. A tall, imposing man with a commanding presence, he stepped onto the patio, his sharp gaze immediately landing on Chijioke. Adeobi, he said, his tone neutral but firm. You didn't tell me we had a guest. Adeobi stood, her demeanor shifting to one of quiet defiance. Papa, this is Chijioke. He's a friend. Chijioke rose as well, extending a hand. Good afternoon, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you. Chief Ease shook his hand briefly, his expression unreadable. Likewise. After a moment of silence, he turned to Adeobi. We'll talk later. With that, he walked away, leaving a tense atmosphere in his wake. The car ride back to Chijioke's apartment was quiet. Adeobi seemed lost in thought, and Chijioke didn't want to push her. Thank you for coming today, she said softly as they neared his building. I know it was a lot to take in. It was, he admitted. But I'm glad I came. It helped me understand you better. She smiled, relief flickering across her face. I'll see you soon. Definitely, he replied, his tone reassuring. That evening, Adeobi sat in her father's study, facing his stern expression. Who is this Chijioke? Chief Ease asked, his tone serious. He's a friend, Adeobi replied, keeping her voice steady. The sun hung high over the bustling streets of Ikeja, Lagos, casting its golden rays on the sea of humanity moving with purpose through the vibrant city. Street vendors lined the sidewalks, their shouts mingling with the blaring horns of impatient drivers and the rhythmic clatter of danfos, the ubiquitous yellow buses of Lagos. Among the chaos, a modest cosmetics shop stood tucked between a roadside kiosk selling roasted plantains and a boutique that displayed ostentatious lace fabrics in its glass windows. Inside, the sun